While the Bible doesn't mention dinosaurs directly, it does include references to creatures that some interpret as monsters, which could be associated with these prehistoric giants. However, it is important to recognize that the Bible was written in a specific cultural and historical context, with a symbolic and narrative language that does not necessarily align with our modern categories of scientific classification. For example, texts such as the Book of Job describe the Behemoth and the Leviathan, colossal creatures that some interpretations associate with dinosaurs. However, these passages can be understood as a poetic representation of God's power and greatness over creation, rather than a literal description of specific animals. Furthermore, it is interesting to note that several ancient cultures around the world have myths and legends about giant or monstrous creatures that resemble dinosaurs. For example, in Greek mythology, there are stories about beings like Typhon, a colossal creature that defies the gods. These narratives reflect human fascination with the unknown and the supernatural, and may have been influenced by discoveries of dinosaur bones or other prehistoric fossils. However, when we consider the geological and paleontological timeline, we know that dinosaurs lived millions of years ago and became extinct long before the emergence of modern humanity. Therefore, it is unlikely that the biblical authors had direct knowledge of these animals. Instead, the references to monstrous creatures in the Bible can be understood within the cultural and religious context of the time, without necessarily implying a precise understanding of natural history. But perhaps you're wondering, where does the Bible mention these animals that many people understand and interpret to have been dinosaurs? In Genesis 1:21, the creation of the great water animals is mentioned. In the original Hebrew, the expression used can be translated as water monsters. These beings, because of their description, are often interpreted in different ways. Some scholars and interpreters suggest that these great aquatic beasts could be a reference to marine dinosaurs, such as the plesiosaur or the ichthyosaur. These prehistoric creatures inhabited the seas during the Mesozoic period, which spanned millions of years before the human existence recorded in the Bible. Other interpretations suggest that these animals could be whales or other large marine mammals. In fact, some modern translations of the Bible use the term whales to describe these aquatic beings. This passage raises interesting questions about how to understand biblical descriptions in the light of contemporary scientific knowledge. While some people see in these passages a possible reference to dinosaurs, others interpret it more broadly, including a variety of aquatic creatures. This diversity of interpretations highlights the complexity and richness of biblical hermeneutics, where different traditions and perspectives can coexist and enrich our understanding of Scripture. There is also another animal that the Bible mentions, known to us today as the behemoth. According to what is written in the book of Job, chapter 40, verses 15 to 24, the behemoth is described as a herbivorous animal of extraordinary size that inhabited the vicinity of a river. Traditionally, many scholars have associated the behemoth with the hippopotamus or the elephant due to its size and proximity to water. However, some aspects of the behemoth's description present characteristics that challenge this traditional association. For example, a tail-like cedar is mentioned, which does not correspond to the tail characteristics of a hippopotamus or elephant. This peculiarity has led some interpretations to suggest that the behemoth could be a representation of an animal still unknown to modern readers, possibly a dinosaur. This interpretation raises fascinating questions about the relationship between the biblical description and contemporary scientific knowledge. Although dinosaurs inhabited the Earth millions of years before recorded human existence, the possibility that references to these prehistoric beings are present in the Bible is a subject of interesting debate. This diversity of interpretations reminds us of the complexity of the Scriptures and the need to carefully consider the historical, cultural, and literary context when approaching these ancient texts. At the same time, it opens up space for a deeper exploration of the intersections between faith and science, and for a broader appreciation of the richness of humanity's cultural and religious heritage. Another animal mentioned in the Bible is Leviathan. This mysterious being is described as a sea monster of enormous proportions, with impressive characteristics that defy simplistic interpretations. Although some people have associated Leviathan with the crocodile due to its description of powerful jaws and impenetrable scales, the most common association is with the figure of the dragon. This connection is supported by the mention that Leviathan spits fire, an attribute often attributed to dragons in ancient mythologies. However, it is equally plausible to consider that Leviathan was inspired by a marine dinosaur. These prehistoric beings, such as the Kronosaurus or the Mosasaurus, inhabited the seas during the Mesozoic period, millions of years ago, and possessed characteristics that could align with the description of Leviathan. Furthermore, it is interesting to note that Leviathan has also been interpreted as an allegorical figure in some parts of the Bible, representing evil or the devil himself. For example, in Isaiah 27:1, Leviathan is mentioned as a symbol of chaos and opposition to God. This variety of interpretations highlights the richness and complexity of the biblical narratives, which often incorporate symbolic and mythological elements to convey deeper spiritual truths. At the same time, it opens up space for a wider appreciation of the diversity of perspectives and traditions within humanity's cultural and religious heritage. The presence of possible references to dinosaur-like creatures in the Bible and other ancient traditions is a fascinating topic and subject to various interpretations. However, it is crucial to approach these narratives with sensitivity to their historical and cultural contexts. While it can be tempting to draw direct and literal conclusions from these texts, it is important to recognize that they were written in different times and cultures, with a worldview very different from our own. When considering possible parallels between biblical descriptions and dinosaurs, we must take into account the limitations of the knowledge and language of the time in which they were written. The biblical narratives were not conceived as scientific treatises, but rather as expressions of faith, tradition, and spiritual teachings. Therefore, interpreting these texts in a literalist way can lead to distorted and decontextualized conclusions. Instead, it is more productive to understand these passages as reflections of their authors and communities' experiences and understandings of the world. The creatures described may have been influenced by encounters with real animals, local myths, or even human imagination. This diversity of influences and meanings highlights the richness and complexity of ancient traditions and invites us to a deeper and more contextualized appreciation of religious and cultural narratives. Therefore, when exploring possible connections between the Bible and dinosaurs, it is essential to adopt an approach that values historical and cultural context, avoiding simplistic or anachronistic interpretations. In doing so, we can enrich our understanding of Scripture and appreciate the depth and diversity of human traditions over time.